This is Continuum Drag, a weekly podcast where we watch sci-fi, fantasy, and everything in between.
This week, First Wave, Season 1, Episodes 20 and 22.
That kid was wearing headphones. Was he listening to Sonic War?
Yeah? So what?
You think that's what made him go berserk?
I don't know.
Well, I think you do, dude.
The music is freaky.
Define freaky.
It's like a rush. It makes you want to tear someone's head off. Look!
Welcome to Continuum Drag, the podcast trapped in a quantum pocket dimension. I'm Luke, here with my co-host Jordan. What's real, Jordan?
You know, I wrote something down for what's real because as I'm taking my notes and I hear a funny line, I'll write it down. And I wrote this line down, and I don't actually remember what it was now. And I don't know who said it. I'm assuming Kate. It was, "You mess with me, you mess with your life." Do you remember what that line was?
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't remember. Anyways, I wrote it down. At one point, it tickled me.
If you mess with me, you mess with your life?
Yeah, maybe an alien said it?
I guess so. I don't know. I'm trying to think of these two episodes and can't figure out where it would even happen.
I know. I literally, as we just about to start recording, I pulled up my notes. I'm like, what was that? I don't even remember. Anyways, you mess with me, you mess with your life. That's all I have to say.
Well, that's true for you. You're always saying that to people, Jordan.
I am all the time. Mailman, he comes up. I'm like, you mess with me, you mess with your life.
He says, "Here's your Christmas cards, sir."
That's right. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, take that small town charm and get out of here.
Well, Jordan, before we get into it this week, I thought I'd do a little bit of background on the creator of First Wave. Mm-hmm. And, of course, play a little game of Echo.
Oh, no. I know. And I'll tell you exactly what Echo stands for. Emmy. Canadian award. Is it ECHO?
Yeah, the typical spelling of Echo.
I couldn't remember if it was like a just something else. Oscar and
maybe a K in there.
Yeah, EC. Yeah, what's the H then?
Hugo.
Oh, Hugo. I was gonna say Hollywood star. One of these times I'll get it.
No, Hugo's because it's a science fiction podcast, Jordan.
That's right. Sorry, Hugos. I always forget about you, as everyone else does too.
Oh, poor Hugo.
Poor Hugos.
You're never going to win a Hugo this way, Jordan.
Yeah, I don't think we were up anyways.
Well, let's start with the creator of First Wave. See if I can pronounce his name. Chris Brancato.
Oh, is that it? Yeah, is that his name? Chris Brancato. Okay.
He's an interesting guy, actually. I kind of looked at his resume, and I'm like, wow, he's done some work. He got to start doing Beverly Hills 90210, but then also wrote an episode or co-wrote an episode of The X-Files, and wrote the sequel to Species 2.
Oh, Species 2. I had a friend in, I guess it was grade school at the time, and he came to school very excited because he saw Species 2, and he told us it was much better than the first. And then another friend was like, they got in a real argument about it, how there's no way it was better than the first one. And I just watched it. I just watched the fight. I hadn't seen either of them. You ever seen Species? I don't think I've seen either of those.
No, I've definitely seen Species. Definitely not Species 2, though. I don't think anyone thinks it's better than the first one.
Maybe Natasha Henstridge does.
Is she in? She's not in the second one.
I don't know. I was just guessing.
I'm definitely sure she did not come back for the sequel.
Oh, you think she was too big for the sequel? You think she's too big a star?
I think the sequel's direct to DVD, or maybe even VHS.
I'm going to say no. I haven't seen it. There's no way she was big enough to star to say no to it. I bet everyone else didn't come back, but she did.
I bet you any money she's not in it. How much you want to bet right now?
$50.
$50? Let's do it.
Yeah. This is live. Luke's looking at
I'm going to look it up. I pulled up my phone. I'm opening up IMDb. Yeah. IMDb. The listeners at home, they know the answer. They're screaming it right now. They're like, Species 2 is better than Species 1.
And they're like, one of these guys is rich now.
Oh, I do owe you $50, Jordan.
Oh, she's in it.
She is, with Michael Madison.
Ooh, yeah.
That's a cast.
I can't wait to spend the money. One time when I was a kid, I found $5 and I bought 5 chocolate bars, and that was a great day. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to buy 50 chocolate bars.
I take it back now, Jordan. I actually think it is a better movie. James Cromwell's in it too.
Is he? Interesting.
Yeah. Everybody's in this movie. Apparently, it is a better movie.
So Francis was right.
Francis was right. Call him up. Get him on the line.
You know what's weird? This is just for you and me. This is the second time I haven't thought of this guy Francis in 30 years. It's the second time he's come up this week. I was talking to an old friend of mine, and he came up too about shoplifting. Anyways, that's not what he called.
It's just serendipity, Jordan.
I guess so.
Well, watch your mailbox for that $50.
Oh, I can't wait. Just add it to the tab.
Anyway, getting back to old Chris Brancato.
Mm-hmm.
He obviously had humble beginnings before he got into First Wave. So, some script editing and a couple episodes of 90210. Then co-wrote an X-Files episode. Then he gets this. So, really blowing up. He's got First Wave going. But you'll never guess what he's been up to recently.
Is it in film?
He's still working.
Maybe he's just like, I'm gonna guess he's working as like an editor.
He is the creator of Netflix's Narcos.
Oh wow! Well,
so a wealthy man now.
Oh, good for him. Yeah, you know what? He worked his way through the trenches through First Wave.
That's true. He got his first series made up on old Toronto or Vancouver, probably not Toronto.
It must be Vancouver, yeah.
And look at him now. Netflix series many series.
Yeah. Well, good for him.
They got like 3 Narcos, right?
I have no idea. I've never seen it, but I think you're right. I think there's at least 2.
I haven't seen it either.
Yeah, it just wasn't for me. It didn't have Cade Foster, so I wasn't interested.
It'd be great if there was a guy named Cade Foster in it we didn't know.
Yeah, or it's actually the same actor. He just puts him. He's in that character in the Narcos world, so it does. You're like, hold on, this is part of the same shared universe.
Yeah, it's part of the First Wave universe. And then obviously there's a couple executive producers involved with the show. One we mentioned last week, Francis Ford Coppola.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you could tell he's got his fingers on it. I say that jokingly. You can't tell.
I did my best to figure out his involvement in this show, and I really couldn't find anything about how or why. It's impossible to say. I think it maybe the other executive producer, a guy named Larry Sugar. He's like a longtime executive at studios who became a producer. He worked at Warner Brothers and Fox and CBS in a variety of roles before settling down in Vancouver and starting to be a producer for service productions in Vancouver, I think, and then a few originals like this. So I wonder if maybe they knew each other from the studio days, so he got him to slap his name on it. But I cannot figure out how Francis Ford Coppola got involved.
Right, but you know what? They get to put his name right at the end of the credits there. So
there's a Variety article raving about the show and really being like, Francis Ford Coppola does it again.
The Godfather, The Conversation. What else did he make? One to the Heart and First Wave.
But yeah, so it was these two sort of EPs who were on it, who I feel like if Francis Ford Coppola probably wasn't super involved, I feel like Larry Sugar definitely kind of spearheaded this. He feels like, based on his resume of Vancouver produced shows, he probably was the guy who made this happen up in Vancouver. And it also makes sense that he'd have an LA writer he brought up with him and sort of how he set it up. So
right. Sugar sounds familiar. I feel like we've maybe have come across him before, but maybe not.
I don't know. I mean, it seems like he's been at it a long time, so we may have just watched his work in some other capacity in our free time.
Maybe. Classic Sugar.
But now that you know a little bit about the creators, so you know a little bit about Brancato and that he really made it after First Wave. He's been doing well since then. You know all about Francis Ford Coppola. And I've teased you a little bit about the background of old Larry Sugar. So at least that gives you some insight into the Echo game we're about to play.
I forgot we were playing. Sorry. Let's do it.
You fell back asleep midway.
No, you were giving us all this information. I just forgot it was involved in a game. But let's do it. I'm ready to go.
All right, Jordan. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you 4 categories: Emmy, Canadian Award, any Canadian Award, Hugo, and Oscar. And you're going to tell me how many you think the creative team behind the show won. And that includes, obviously, the creator and the EPs, but also the writers and directors who worked on the show. We're not going to bring the cast into this. We're just going to focus on sort of that as the creative force behind the show, behind the camera.
Let's do it.
All right, Jordan. How many Emmys do you think the team behind First Wave won?
I think there's probably enough people on this. I bet it won... the people involved, I think they've won 2 Emmys.
Oh, you're close. It's one Emmy.
One Emmy. Yeah, who won that?
Now, one of the directors won for 24.
Oh, nice. Oh yeah, remember 24? That was on forever.
Remember when that was the big show?
I do remember when that was a big show. Yeah, yeah.
It was quite this thing. One show, it's an hour a day. Oh my god.
Yeah. Hey, it was exactly what people wanted at that time.
Hey man, this is what we all want. A little torture, a little.
Yeah. Yeah, sort of. Okay, cool.
All right, Jordan. Now, how many Canadian awards do you think the creative team behind this has won?
Canadian awards. I have a feeling. I'm still gonna say zero. Zero awards.
Well, Jordan, it was 35.
Whoa, I wasn't even close. 35 awards.
One director has 8 of those, and one writer has 8 of those as well. That writer won 5 of them for Due South.
Oh wow, Due South.
And then there are a few little I pulled out a few cherries out of this 35 people who or 35 awards won by all the people involved. The awards aren't important for this guy, but one of the directors of First Wave is Sean Levy.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
Who later in his career would become a director on Stranger Things and most recently direct the Ryan Reynolds movie Free Guy, I believe it's called. He's gone on to be quite the large-scale Hollywood director.
Right, so that makes sense. So I was close. Instead of 35, I put 0.
Yeah, you're close. And did you know one of the people also won an award for First Wave?
Oh, really? Yeah, I should have thought of that. I bet you First Wave. I mean, it was on long enough that it probably won something in Canada.
It was weird though. It's a director who directed an episode. He won a what did he win? I don't know. I didn't even write that. Oh, it's a Leo award. He won a Leo award, but he won it for editing.
I don't even know what that award is.
I think it's a Vancouver or BC award.
Interesting. Well, good for him.
And then finally, one last director I wanted to bring up, Jordan. Or writer, I apologize. One last writer I wanted to bring up. He has also won a Leo Award. Not for First Wave, though. But it is Rob LaBelle, the actor Crazy Eddie himself, who wrote an episode of First Wave.
And he won an award for it, huh?
No, he won an award for Motive much later.
Well, again, kudos, Crazy Eddie.
It's a lot of awards have been won for Canadian and Canada for this show. Not for this show, but by this show.
I have a feeling that's the largest category of wins, is the Canadian awards.
No, well, we'll find out.
Mm-hmm.
How many Hugo Awards do you think this creative team has won?
Again, I'm going to go with 1.
It is 0 this time.
It is 0.
Francis Ford Coppola was nominated for Dracula, but he did not win.
Yeah. I think Dracula is a little bit misunderstood.
Not enough Keanu Reeves for people's tastes.
Yeah. I mean, that's a problem, but regardless. He's doing fine, too.
All right, Jordan, final category. How many Oscars has the creative team behind this won?
Oof. I mean, Coppola alone won one for writing Patton. He won for The Godfather, Godfather 2. I think that's all he won. I'm just going to stick with him and say he won 3.
He has won 6 Oscars.
He's won 6 Oscars.
Although one might be a bit of a hit or miss, but he's listed as winning an Oscar in 2011. He won the Irvin G. Thielberg Memorial Award.
Oh, I don't remember that.
That's a award for creative producers.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Let's give it to him. He hasn't had one in a while.
He won it.
So there you go. Wow, he's won that many, huh?
Yeah. Well, I mean, for Godfather 2, I think he swept. He got producer, writer, and director.
Right. I kind of forgot that it was multiple in one movie.
You can win a lot if you make Godfather 2, apparently.
Yeah. Yeah, if you make Godfather 2, you also could win a lot of Oscars.
But that's Echo, Jordan. Quite a few awards on this show. Probably the most we've ever had doing this game.
Well, that Canadian award really took it over to the top. We've never had that many.
No, I mean, we've done Canadian shows before, too. And, I was just had everyone who worked on the show at some point got an award. If you worked on First Wave, you got an award at some point in your life.
Well, that's just a tease for how good this show is for the person listening right now.
No, I know, right? With that kind of talent, that kind of Canadian talent.
Well, that kind of Canadian talent, don't you want to hear about Season 1, Episode 20, Melody?
Honestly, you know what this means, Jordan? It's just more embarrassing that we'll never win an award in Canada.
No, I think if we go long enough, we're bound to win one.
Feels like they just hand them out like candy, according to that game.
We're going to get one. Don't worry, Luke. I know that's what we're in this for. The money and the awards and the esteem.
Yeah, definitely the awards.
Yeah.
You got all that room in that mantle behind you.
It's empty, though.
Yeah, you got that room. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
All right, Jordan. Here's the IMDb summary for Season 1, Episode 20, Melody. 2 police officers are beaten up at a rock concert by a frenzied crowd. Foster suspects Gua involvement and investigates the band. Is there a reason the fans went wild?
Yeah. You mentioned something, and I don't know. I think they say it maybe in this episode, but it's if it's not in this episode, it's the next one, anyways, where we get the name of the aliens. I think it was just Gua.
It's written down as Gua, so I could never remember how to pronounce it.
Yeah, I think it's Gua, but which is I'll say this. I don't know if that's a great name for an alien.
It's fine. What is it going to be?
It's fine, but like it's not like
It's not a
I don't
Wookiee.
know. It's not. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's not quite as interesting, but sure, Gua. Hey, let me start with this this band Sonic War. We're gonna see a lot of this band.
Yeah, let's get right into Sonic War right now.
I'm a fan. I'm a fan of Sonic War. I want to buy their stuff.
I won't lie. I was shocked by how they managed to capture the sound of music at this period. It's dead on the money.
Yeah, it's you know what? It's not bad. They've done a really good job where yeah, it's the most authentic thing in this show is how decent this band is.
We've watched so many shows with musical acts at this point that I truly wasn't shocked. I'm just like, oh, it's like somebody understands literally the music of 1998 and replicated it perfectly to the point where it's just like, I would have listened to this if it were 1998.
Yeah, it could. At one point, I was like, "Is this an actual band?" I'm like 99.9% sure it's not, but it could well have been. It's that good. So you got to give a point to old First Wave for how good Sonic War is. Sonic War.
I tried to look into it too. It's all actors in the band, so we know the band is not the actors, and then there's no credit for them. And I tried to Shazam a song, and it didn't come up with anything. And I'm like, maybe they just wrote it for the show.
I think they did. I think just whoever was doing the music, whoever wrote the music, just really understood the assignment, did a really good job.
And like they did like 3, maybe 4 full songs that happen in the show.
You remember we watched that show where the family went like I don't know, I think they were in Egypt or something, and they accidentally got into a time portal and it sent them all around the world. Remember that?
You mean they went to some sort of other world, Jordan?
That's right. Otherworld. And do you remember there was an episode of Otherworld where the two of them became like record stars?
Yeah.
Yeah, that sucked.
But they only played other people's music.
That's right. That's what my point was. It sucked, and they only played like old songs from like the 50s, and then people were going nuts. But not Sonic War. They do all real, original, authentic music.
I can't remember when we watched Otherworld. Was it before or after they made the movie with that exact same premise where a man invents the Beatles in a world where the Beatles don't exist?
Oh, I think that was before.
Okay.
Before. Yeah, same idea though.
I later thought about it. I'm just like, is that episode the same as that movie? I'm like, I guess it is.
Yeah, I'm sure it's exactly the same.
Anyway, Sonic War. It's headed by a lead singer named Kat. She's from the sticks, but she's got the talent. She's come up. And as her manager says, angry chicks sell tickets, Jordan.
That's true. Yeah. It's in my wheelhouse.
I did like, though, there's this real sense, and I believe they call them rage rockers at some point. That's kind of the implications. Like, you go, you mosh, you get really, like, hyped up about it. I wouldn't say their music's that ragey.
I agree. Yeah, not to take anything away from Sonic War, because as I've said, I'm a big warhead. That's what their fans are. But yeah, the music is like, they're like, it's so aggressive. It's really not that aggressive. Again, it's like what you would hear on radio in the mid 90s. But I like that even later on, where it'll be a plot point, but she'll play like a slower song, and he's like, and then one guy's like, no, like I play your heavier stuff. It's barely any different than their heavy stuff. Like they're like her light song and their heavy song, they're pretty much the exact same.
I did notice that too. I'm just like, this is not a change in tone at all.
Yeah, it's not like she sat down on a stool and pulled out an acoustic guitar. It's just like, yeah, it's like one verse didn't have drums.
That said, I will admit that from 1998 on into the 2000s, you couldn't go to any rock show without a mosh pit, whether it made sense or not.
Yeah. So I mean, I think you can allow it, and it works in this show because it will become what this episode is about, which is this music and kids aggression and that sort of thing. So I think it works fine.
It's very authentic in that. I felt the mosh pits were authentic. I thought the music was authentic. I mean, it felt authentic to the time.
And that's what the opening scene is. We go to a club. We see this band Sonic War playing. We know it's Sonic War. I think it's written on their drum. And the crowd's loving it. Like, the kids are going crazy. And these cops show up. And they're just basically, they go to the guy at the door. And they're like, hey, where's your permit for this? Because it's clearly, like, being set up in a not official venue. And they're like, oh, the permit's still in the way. And they're like, you can't play here now. I gotta shut it down. I do like, though, that the guy at the door is like, there's no drugs and there's no alcohol here. Like, what's the big deal? And I was like, he does make a good point. They're just having a good time. It's not hurting anybody. But anyways, the cop's like, no, he's got to shut it down. The cops come in, but almost as soon as the cops get in there, things get very aggressive, and the people start attacking the cops.
Yeah, they beat them into a coma.
Yeah, so not good.
Not good. You mentioned the drum hit says the name of the band. Did you notice who the drummer was?
Who was that guy?
That was a Canadian character actor, Tyler Labine.
Yeah, I recognize his face, but I forgot to look it up. What was he in?
He's just in, like, everything Canadian, and then a bunch of American stuff eventually, too. He just, like, is a guy with that face. I'm trying to think. Have you ever seen Tucker and Dale versus Evil? Like, one of those kind of movies?
Yeah, that's right. Him. Yeah, I saw his face, and I was like, he looks really familiar, and I just forgot to look it up.
Yeah, he's a real Canadian character actor. You notice right away. There's a bassist, but I don't know who he is, and he's pretty generic, and he gets, like, pretty lost. He doesn't have anything to do in the episode, really.
Yeah, it's really he has like maybe two scenes, but the real major characters are the drummer and the singer.
And then, of course, there's their manager, who I was confused. I don't know much about music, Jordan, so maybe you can tell me. Is it typical for the manager to also produce and mix all your work?
Yeah, they sort of... That's the one thing on this episode. I started writing notes about how it was all weird and inconsistent, but you're just like, it's enough to just get you through where you got to be. But like, a lot of this doesn't make sense. They're like in a studio, but they don't have a contract yet. And they're recording this demo, but they have to do these shows. Like, none of the stuff like is done in the right order, and why he's doing all the stuff. He's doing everything because it's easier just to have one character as opposed to have like a music producer and a studio engineer and a manager and a publicist. So it's like he does everything. You're like, all right, sure. Makes it easy.
Fair enough. It was also, I was like, this manager does a lot, eh?
Yeah, I know. For which was spoiler, for an alien undercover, he's really picked a really hard gig.
It was very funny because very early on in the episode, like almost from the first scene, you're pretty suspicious he's the alien, to the point where I'm like, are they like going to do a turn here and he's not the alien? And nope, that's not the case. Yeah, and he's going to stay that way.
Yeah, because right off the bat, he's always kind of like cloaked in shadows and always like looking around suspiciously. And you're like, he looks like he might be, I don't know, an alien wearing a human husk.
Oh, did you like that too? That they mentioned that there's two. I think it's in the next episode as well. It's how do you say the alien name?
Oh, a gua.
Guas and guas wear human husks. I like they call them husks. That was a good piece of content.
Yeah, human husks.
Anyway, back to the plot of the episode. This, of course, the beating of these cops, it brings Cade to Detroit because there's a Notre Dame quatrain that says, quote, "Sweet youth cries revolt over a bitter melody." I believe it goes on to say, in the city of iron chariots. And he's just like, Detroit? Music? I better go.
Honestly, they should just drop the whole Nostradamus stuff because it doesn't really work at all. It could just have been him and Eddie see a news report or read something in the newspaper and we're like, that seems sketchy. Or they're constantly looking through the news or like some sort of alternate media publication to try to find odd stories. That makes as much sense, actually more sense than some obscure passage from this like dope from the 1500s, you know?
I do like, though, that Cade comes to town and he poses as a record executive, and best name of a fake name you've ever heard. They just kept calling him Kenny Gaines. I'm like, Kenny Gaines, look
Kenny
out.
Gaines. Yeah, that's right. And one other quick question. Logistically, how is Cade paying for all this? Do you think that was an episode we missed? Because he's lost his job.
We'll get into that next episode, Jordan.
Oh, okay.
But it is a good question. I hadn't thought about it at all because I guess that doesn't bother me. But it is a good question. How is he paying for all this?
Yeah, because he's flying around the world, or at least the continental United States. Also Vancouver.
I do like that he says he meets the band. He's like, I'm Kenny Gaines. I'm a big record producer. I think he says he discovered Jane's Addiction and Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, he did. No, he did. Yeah, he said he discovered Jane's Addiction, and then he said he put together the Guns N' Roses reunion tour. And I was like, wait a minute, Guns N' Roses didn't get to a reunion until like years and years later. Like it wasn't that long ago. So is that them just foreshadowing that Guns N' Roses would get back together?
Oh, maybe. I don't know. I do think he said at some point, he's like, I found them at the Serpent Room in LA in the 80s. And I'm like, how old is he?
Well, that's credibility.
Anyway, obviously Sonic Wars manager is not interested in this because he's an alien with other plans. But he tells them, he's just like, we don't need your record company. We're going to be like the Beastie Boys, but better. We're going to start a label and our own distribution network. And I was just like, if your manager's saying that, you should dump him immediately.
You know what's interesting though is I was talking to a friend about this last night. There's a major kind of undercurrent in this episode, which is like something that I remember when I was a kid in music, which is sort of like this like desire for like authenticity and sort of like independence and like, you know, independent record labels versus major labels. And that's really a theme through this of like, you know, we're not going to sell out. We want to do our stuff. That's sort of gone now in music. Like this idea of like corporations have taken over now. There's no difference between an indie label and a major label. And no one has conversations about, you know, no one's like, their early stuff was better before that label got involved. That just like doesn't happen now. It's interesting to see this little bit of a timestamp where that was still a conversation in music.
Yeah. Back when you had to be cool and credible with the kids by not selling out to the man.
Yeah, and now everyone's sold out and everyone's fine with it. So that's just what it is. Everyone's fine.
Yeah, well, people should get paid.
Well, there's that. That's the other argument. Yeah, I mean, they're still not getting paid, but teach their own.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
Don't worry. Everyone's attitude has changed, but people who are making this stuff are still not getting money. There's 3 people who are getting money.
Guns N' Roses mostly, right?
Yeah, that's right, for the reunion tour.
Anyway, that is the argument about it. It's like, are we going to go to a label? Are we going to stay independent? You know, Kat doesn't exactly agree with the manager, but, you know, she's willing to follow his lead because she trusts him. And, like, at various points of the episode when she questions him, he, like, at some point throws their contract back in her face and says he'll, like, bury her in legal fees forever if she tries. He's a real, like, he real swings back between sweet and sour real quick, this manager.
Yeah, it's funny when that scene happened because it didn't seem to have any real implications later on, because I thought it was going to be a bit of a turn for her where, like, she's like, I don't know what I'm going to do, and maybe I'll do this. And he's like, if you do it, I'm going to, like, sue you and all this stuff. And I was like, oh, that's a real hard thing to walk back from. But she was just later, she's like, yeah, you're right. I was like, ooh, I think that would change my relationship with someone if they were threatening to destroy me legally.
No, that's not what's happening in this show. It's not about their band stuff. It's about Cade and the discovery of aliens.
That's right. Yeah.
Gua, if you will.
The Gua, wearing their husks.
Anyway, well, Cade's out there trying to, like, win his way into this band and not having much success. Some of these classic hacky sack youths in their bucket hats have bootlegged a concert by Sonic War and are listening to it on the street. And one of them goes a little crazy and attacks a shop owner.
Yeah, and at this point, like, you kind of get the idea. I shouldn't say kind of. You get the idea as a viewer because you've seen this before. It's very obvious. And I kept hoping they were going to take maybe a different turn with it, which they don't, which is clearly the music is making people aggressive in a way, and it's clearly aliens have affected the music. You just, like, they say that right off the bat, and it takes a while, maybe longer than it should, for Cade to kind of catch up to where the viewer is.
Well, he gets some idea because I think he, at this point, happens to walk by this happening. He grabs one of the youths and roughs him up and says he's a cop, and he's just like, does the music make you angry? What's happening?
I have a couple questions, though, for this. So we know that's what it's going to be, right? The music makes people angry. They get really aggressive, and they fight, and there's reasons why the aliens want that, the Gua. But I have a couple questions for you. So essentially you go into, like, a trance of some sort, right? You get really aggressive. So do you get out of that later then? That's my first question, right? So if, like, you and I listen to the music and I fight you, after the music's done, like, an hour later, I'm not aggressive anymore, right? Like, it wears off.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, what we kind of see is, like, he'll go to a concert, he'll see the kids get a little angry. I think he, like, steals a tape from one of the kids, so he has, like, a copy of the bootleg that he can give to Eddie to analyze.
Okay, so but if you get angry, then you feel better later. Do you feel weird about how you've acted? And or does the drug also or the music also create like memory loss? Do you know what I
No
mean?
worse than when you get drunk, I don't think.
Oh, I suppose. But like if you weren't drinking and stuff, you're like, wouldn't you be like, why was I doing that?
I don't know. I think, well, what they kind of say is he steals a tape from this kid. The kids all chase him because they're mad, but he gets away. And when he gives it to Eddie, they like do some analysis on it, and it's very funny. Eddie's like, I ran analysis on the tape, and there's a ninth layer. Typically, there's only 8 layers on a demo, and I was like, what? He recorded it on a tape under his hat.
Yeah, I know. I like that. It's like this wasn't a professionally like mixed sort of thing. It's someone who just recorded, and they're like, yeah, but they have to have that line, right? That there's something extra in this in the audio wave. So I'm like, yeah, okay, it's an alien.
Sure,
thing.
why not? And they're like, why is it only affecting kids? Because Cade was there and he didn't feel angry. And one of my favorite lines of the episode, Cade's like, "Get on the internet, Eddie."
And he does. And he does because
does.
he looks up that teenagers produce, I think it's androgen is what they say, which is a sex hormone that this music seems to stimulate and kind of put into overdrive. It makes people aggressive, right?
Yeah, so I think to your point, Jordan, to your question rather, I think what it is just like the kids get amped up when they're at a concert. And I think, I don't know if you remember being a teenager at a concert, but you can get amped up and do some things you might not like. You just get caught up in the moment. I think that's probably what happens is the kids like later come down. They're like, oof, got really angry at that music there.
Right. Okay. I mean, it works until the point where you're like beating someone to death. That's a little more than we're like, oh, what a crazy night, huh? Remember when we beat that cop to death?
Did you not have that happen when you were a kid?
I didn't grow up in the mean streets like you did.
But I think that's the idea they're playing with is kids kind of get riled up by it and like,
right.
It's hard to tell the difference between an alien plot and just like kids getting a little too crazy.
Okay, well, I have a second question then, Luke, and sorry to keep throwing you off. But why, if this was the plan for the aliens to create, because obviously they want to create aggression, you'll see the plan gets bigger and bigger. Why would you not have just chosen a band who's already successful?
That is a good question. They say they've been at this plan for years, which made me laugh a lot.
Well, because I'm like, that makes sense because you keep trying to like break a band. I'm like, why not go grab, I don't know, Taylor Swift and just get in there and add something to her music because everyone's going to listen to that crap anyway.
Crap, Jordan.
All right.
Just 10 songs in the top 10, 100? I don't remember.
You're right. That's a sign of quality. Yes, put it in one of her top 10 songs.
Jordan, you're so funny.
Yeah, it's I don't care. Whatever. I'm just saying, take one of these successful people that people really like and everyone sort of listens to, and just do that. I should be one of these Gua. I got a much better business plan than these guys do.
But yes, this is it. It's in the tape. There's a ninth layer to the thing where it seems the aggression hits into, and Cade is now just keeps just trying to talk to this band, and like they're not interested in him. And the most you can kind of get out of them is that like they admit the violence started when they got the new manager, and then they tell him the only thing that's really changed is that Kat got a new guitar from the manager when he joined them or something.
That's right.
And like it leads to a whole subplot where Cade thinks the guitar is evil, even though like scenes before they found the ninth layer, like that seems like a more likely suspect.
Yeah, that was weird, right? Like I didn't know if it was like it just because they needed to extend the episode, but he just kind of gets his decision is it must be the guitar, even though there's much more information showing it's not.
But I think part of it is it gives Cade a scene where he can break into their studio and like overhear the manager saying, "We're gonna get this demo on local radio soon. Some college stations will play it, and then we'll get more distribution." Like it's such a low stakes plan, like you said, literally like hopefully we can get some college play on this and then it'll get bigger.
It also doesn't make sense why like later on the whole thing is like it's gonna be him what's the manager's name?
Who knows?
Whatever, fake Gua manager, where like at one point like it's very important for him to record their live show, and I'm like, why don't you just record this in the studio? You're just gonna add your ninth layer anyways. I don't know why this is important. And he's like very upset when they're like not doing things the way he wants in the live show, and I was like, but it doesn't matter. You have an overall plan. It's not, the point is not to rile up these kids. You know that works. The point is to rile up as many as you possibly can. So I don't know. This guy is just not very good. This Gua guy's not very good.
It doesn't make a lot of sense. Yeah, for some reason it needs to be a live demo so that he can live mix in that ninth layer into it.
Yeah, it's like, why?
But then he also gets mad when she plays her new song because he's just like, that's not the song we planned to play.
Yeah.
Even though I'm just like, we'll just mix in the ninth layer to her new song.
I think what they're implying is, but it's not. It doesn't translate very well in the actual music that we as a viewer hear and see, which is, it's supposed to be that it was like her sort of like quieter, more introspective song. So you can't hide that extra layer of sound in there. Whereas with the loud stuff, you can. I think that's what they were implying. But again, the songs sound pretty much the same.
I remembered a little bit about her new song that she wrote that she was trying out, which is probably why you liked it, because it gives her so much indie cred, Jordan.
Yeah. I did like it. It was pretty good.
She's like, I wrote this new song at a strip club the other day, and I was like, oh, so alt.
She might have top 10 songs in the what did you call it? The hot 300 or whatever people care about.
At any rate, Cade does, as I said, sneak into the recording studio, overhear this plan to get the record out, and as he's poking around their equipment trying to get a look at this guitar, the drummer walks in and catches him. And, of course, when he looks at the drummer, old Tyler Labine, his face moves with tentacles under his skin. You're like, oh, there's two aliens in the band. What a turn.
Yeah. Well, that's the only thing. I mean, your point earlier of, like, the record manager is so clearly bad. You're like, is he just going to be bad? It's like, yes, he's bad. But there's also another guy. And you do get hints of it the whole time, because we haven't really talked about it. But throughout the episode, the band will kind of keep having discussions about, this whole idea of, like, going corporate and signing to a major label and stuff. And the bassist and the guitarist singer, Kat, they keep kind of waffling back and forth. And the drummer's really pushing them, like, no, we should do what we said we were going to do. We could assign to this major label.
Yeah, he likes the angry music. He doesn't like the soft music.
Yeah, which is what the guy wants, because he says it sells better.
And I mean, to your point, actually, maybe this is his character over the manager, but once the drummer's revealed, we get a scene where the drummer talks to the manager, and the drummer's just like, we've been made. They know we're Gua. This guy's after us. He's coming to get us. And the manager's like, no way. He's just a regular studio guy. He has no idea what's going on. I called his secretary. Everything's fine.
Yeah. Well, he did. Yeah, he did. Or very early on, he's like, he's talks to, what was Cade's fake name in this again?
Kenny Gaines.
Anyways, he's like, I'll call Kenny Gaines on his like business card. He calls, and of course he gets put through to Crazy Eddie, who like uses a voice modulator to pretend he sounds like. I like that he has to use a voice modulator so he sounds like a woman. When he picks up the phone, I'm like, why couldn't it have been a man that picked up the phone? It's not like he knows Eddie.
You couldn't be a secretary as a man. It doesn't make any sense.
I know. I guess that was the point. I was like, okay, there's no need for that voice modulator. But anyways, he does it, and the guy's like, checks out. He's clearly a record executive.
Anyway, Cade goes to that big live show where they're going to record the demo that night, and he tries to like warn Kate before she goes on stage. He's like, I think the guitar is causing the violence. And I was just like, okay, sure. I don't know why you think that, but okay.
Yeah. And you know what's funny? On this episode, Cade, for all intents and purposes, is doing what he usually does. He's sort of like investigating and stuff. But it seems like most of this sort of takes care of itself. Like he's just kind of walking around. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not like he doesn't really push the action at all. Like he talks to them a couple times, but they're like, I don't think we'll go with you. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's almost like he didn't need to be there.
He really doesn't even really come out and say what he's up to until I think right at the scene where he's kind of like, the violence is, I'm here investigating the violence. I'm not a record producer. It maybe is in your guitar. And essentially what it is I guess this is why I said the guitar, because it makes for a good scene where Kat gets up there. She starts playing her music for the crowd. The like teens are getting really violent and like they're just punching each other in the face and bleeding all over the floor. And Kat's finally, even though she plays, I would say 95% of that song before she decides to stop, she finally does stop and smash the guitar.
I like it. She smashes the guitar and she says into the microphone, "We're through." I was like, cool.
But because the manager's up in the catwalk mixing live, that ninth track doesn't stop playing. So the kids just keep beating each other up. And Cade's just like, it wasn't the guitar. It was the ninth track all along.
Yeah, it was that thing that clearly was the problem. Oh.
Anyway, it leads to Cade going up to the catwalk. Classic catwalk fight. We love seeing them.
Yeah, he goes up, and I think so far Cade's record of fighting is like 6-0. Like he
always wins, my friend. He never does a
take a
finishing
punch.
blow though. He always I think in this time the manager falls off the side of it into the mosh pit, and you literally watch the kids
stomp him into goo.
Stomp an alien to goo. I know. I was like, well, that's something.
Yeah. And then then Cade turns off the sound and they all like essentially stop fighting, which is what made me kind of think, I'm like, because it was so sudden that I'm like, do all these kids remember what they just did? Do you know what I mean? Like they all kind of just stopped.
I do believe you kind of hear like some like background audio because I think you see some kids looking at the ground where old manager used to be, and they're like, "What happened to him?"
Right. Yeah, that's right. They're like, he got out, and then Cade's like, aliens.
Anyway, Cade destroys the ninth track, and it kind of closes off the episode with Kate. He takes Kat aside and like kind of tells her like, "Don't give up on your dreams. The talent was yours, not the how do you pronounce it? Gua.
Gua.
It wasn't the Gua who gave you the talent." And like he's like talking to her about this stuff, like she has to start from square one. I'm just like, she still has literally all the notoriety she had. She's fine.
Yeah, she's fine. And it's like they were hoping to get like some like indie buzz. They've got that. They just stomped a manager to death. Everyone's gonna talk about that.
I mean, between the cops and the manager, like you're gonna be in the news. Don't worry.
Yeah, they'll be fine.
And final little scene. They get you need a little button at the end of the episode, and that button is the drummer got away. And what you see is he's moved to Cincinnati and he's putting up a poster. He's a professional drummer looking for a new band. So this whole evil music plan isn't over yet.
It's not over yet. They're gonna start again from the bottom with another band who's just like learning their chords. I'm like, all right, sure, start it this way.
This will come back, right? There'll be another episode about this, right?
Well, it's gonna be like 6 years from now for they finally get their demo ready. I did have a couple thoughts though, and just over general in the show, and I instead of just kind of waiting to the end, it's before we get to the next episode, because man, oh man, Luke, was I angry with this next episode. I can't tell you.
I knew you would be.
I knew we would feel differently about it, but I won't even start. But like overall in the show, there's this idea that I wish they maybe leaned into a little bit more, but like this idea that there's like one person and you have to decide what these prophecies mean, because there's something interesting there. But like, again, even at this point, we've watched like 3 episodes, right? And it's just like, they're perfunctory. He's like, Nostradamus talked about sound. Anyways, it's an episode where kids get aggressive. And you're like, okay. Like, isn't there something more about Cade, and he can only really be at one place at one time with like almost non-existent resources? You know what I mean? Like, he has to try to create this resistance and he has nothing. But what we get is this kind of just like floating around. Like, I don't feel like his actions have any real consequences. Like, they just reset after each episode. Do you know what I mean? It's not like he's building anything. So there's no real stakes, or nothing seems important. Like, his decisions don't carry any real weight. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, he's essentially the littlest hobo.
Well, that's what I mean. And it's just like, I think there's something kind of a little disappointing in it. Like, even think the first episode, his wife was killed, which should have jump-started a series of like life-changing events, right? But you don't feel that at all. It's not like that has any effect on it at all. He's just like, yeah, Nostradamus. Anyways, like, but then what was the significance of his wife dying? Was there any point to it? Like, there's no personal risk for him, right? You know, so he just ends up being this cardboard cutout.
He's just on the run from the law now. He can never settle down, Jordan.
I know, but are you invested in his journey at all? You know?
Yeah, he's got to stop the first wave.
I don't know. I think there's like the bones for something interesting here, but the format they want to use, I think, isn't the best vehicle for actually telling an interesting story, is maybe the way to say it.
Yeah, fair enough. And I mean, I think to your more particular point, it's just like the whole Nostradamus prophecies guiding him to the next adventure. It's tenuous to how they tie to an ongoing alien invasion and how Nostradamus is predicted. Like, if this were a show about the devil or like some great evil that comes around once every 1,000 years that Nostradamus wrote about, that's a better tie together than just like a very highly evolved, technologically advanced alien races invading Earth. Also, we have these weird, like, lyrical quatrains from Nostradamus, and somehow those help. Like, it's a bad... They don't mesh together well as two ideas.
And it feels like the writers even know that, right? Because, like, they, like, just at the very beginning, they'll do a voiceover of, like, oh, Nostradamus said this. Anyways, let's get to the episode. Like, it's like they have to throw it in, you know?
Yeah, definitely. It's just, like, it acts as a little device off the top, and it is... every episode a bit of a stretch how that quatrain is going to relate to this and how on earth it would like happen and how he would know. And like, you know, this one at least was a little more specific than most of them, but like, yeah, it's a bit of a mess for sure.
But I would take that over anything. Anything I would take over this episode 22, The Decision.
All right, here's the IMDb summary for Season 1, Episode 22, The Decision.
We'd be foolish to overlook his example.
What example, Joshua? The other 116 subjects crumbled. Doesn't that figure into your statistical calculations?
The others don't concern me.
What does concern you, Joshua?
If 1 out of every 117 humans is a Cade Foster, we'll face a fighting force far stronger than we're prepared to deal with.
What?
The time has come. The Gua Council meets to decide if the time is right to start the second wave, the full military invasion. It seems inevitable, except for one lone voice of dissent. One Gua has doubts and concerns about Foster.
Let me say this right off the bat. If this was just a bottle episode, I think it would be pretty interesting because you have this concept of like, basically what we're getting at right off the bat is you're going to realize these are a bunch of aliens in human form that are having essentially like a political bureaucratic discussion as to what they should be doing. And there's something interesting because you're going to get a lot of terms and a lot of ideas, and you're going to see that they don't all act it's not a hive mind. They all have independence, they all have different thoughts and how their process work. That's all kind of interesting. Unfortunately, this is a clip show.
Yes, in a bizarre turn of events, the first season finale is also a clip show, which has to be a first for us or maybe for the world. I can't imagine any other series doing a clip show as your last episode.
It almost felt like they were like, okay, well, the season's ending. We want to keep people excited and remind them everything they liked about the show, so they'll keep watching for season 2. But I just don't think this was an effective way of doing this at all. I just think I hated this episode. I hated it. Hated it.
Here's what I kept thinking the entire time. I was like, imagine you've just done the first season of your television series. You're the lead actor. You're the only one in the main credits. You get the script for the final episode. You're not in it. You have no part. You don't come to work that week.
You know what? I didn't even think about that. You're absolutely right. Because the only new parts they film are these Gua in this room, you know, your classic like big round table that's lit because they're making evil decisions. And most of this episode, actually I would say a good 10 of this 45 minutes is just stuff from the pilot, just re-showing the pilot.
I will say that I have that note written down here, and they'll do a recap of the pilot that goes for 11 minutes.
Yeah, it was really long, really, really long. It's not like, that's the thing. It's not just like a clip show. It's like a review of major points of the season, but they don't just like mention it. They just show the episode.
Well, it's funny because we'll get into it in a second, but like very early on, they do the review of the pilot, which is 11 minutes of the 40-minute runtime. And it's because it's serialized, but not heavily serialized. So all the important information you needed was provided in the pilot. So that eats up most of the clip show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is weird because, again, when we're watching it the way we have, we watched the first episode, then a couple of episodes, now we're watching this. I'm like, I'm just rewatching the first episode again because most of this is just the pilot.
I will say this, though, Jordan, and I know you hated it, which is fine. It's very reasonable. It's an insane thing to do with a television series for this to be your final first season episode. But for our purposes, for the purposes of two people who have watched 4 episodes of a 20-episode season, it was kind of nice to get a real... I didn't have to watch all the episodes. I could have just went episode 1 and come right to here and got most of the plot of season 1.
You're right, and they just basically skim over and go, here's the important parts, which is all fine. I'll give them points for that. And there is some interesting little bits of like we'll find it with the 3 divisions of the aliens and all this.
Well, you want to talk
some
about
stuff
that now?
in there. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Like what we do learn, and the parts that kind of are fun about the episode, which what you're saying, I think the bottle episode might have worked better, is we don't know what's happened a lot this season, but this episode does give us a nice look at the inside of the Gua mind, at what the Guas are up to.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
finally kind of get a sense of what's happening without Cade. And yeah, like you said, there's 3 divisions of the Gua on Earth running this invasion. It's the Acolytes, the Empiricists, and the Osmosisists.
Yeah, the Osmosis made me laugh because it just like, you got the Empiricists who clearly, I guess, are people out doing studies and trying to basing their decisions on results, and then there's the Osmosis who I guess are just sitting around taking everything in. Made me laugh.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, I just like that they just wrote these things. I'm like, okay, how does that work? But anyways, there's 3 divisions.
And these 3 divisions have been called together because the head of the Gua, back on the Gua homeworld, he has a bit of political problems back home. The movement has started that it's calling for peace because the invasion seems like it's too costly, and they kind of want to, not sure they want to move forward. So the homeworld has some turmoil apparently about this whole invasion plan.
Yeah, and there's whole arguments really about the feasibility of an attack, like how possible it is, how is it worth it for them. Which I like, but like maybe they should have had this conversation before, I don't know, you infiltrated every level of government and organization in the world in every country. Maybe have this conversation before.
You know, it's political, Jordan. It's the movements. The people are fickle.
In 4 decades, they say at this point, they've been here for 4 decades doing experiments.
Yes, they've been on Earth for 4 decades. They've performed 1,800 experiments in 4 decades, which doesn't seem like enough.
I agree. I thought they did that many on just those 117 people at the first episode.
But basically what the head of the Gua has asked the first wave sort of forces on Earth to basically get together, make a decision. Is it time to start the invasion or not? Like, he needs to know what's going to happen. So they're kind of there to have this conversation and maybe have a vote. And it seems like they're all down with it, but there is this lone objector. Gua named Joshua steps out and says he believes that there's more to be said and they're not ready for an invasion yet.
Yeah. And now I couldn't tell, and because we haven't watched the episodes, I couldn't tell if Noah is going to be sort of someone who's like a turncoat, like he starts working with humans later on, or if this is he's just that character who he's just someone who's a little bit trepidatious about stuff. I have a feeling he's going to become a bit of a ally in some ways to Cade. I don't know if that's how it's going to be, but that's my feeling with how they've sort of introduced him here.
Yeah,
do you get the same feeling?
Yeah, I think that's a sense you're kind of getting for sure. He doesn't seem like he's exactly turned against his own kind. It seems like he's more concerned for his own kind, but like,
yeah,
he's just not as war hungry as maybe he once was. So Joshua apparently was introduced in the 2nd episode of the series, so we didn't see that. And of the episodes we watched, he hadn't appeared in any of them, but he's in 7 episodes of the first season, so he's actually quite an integral recurring character in the first season.
Right. Hey, and let me just mention, here's my actual word-for-word note that I'm taking at this point. I go, they're discussing Cade. Haha, why are they showing stuff from the pilot again? Wait, is this a clip show? Dear Lord, it is. This is all from the pilot. That's my note I made.
A realization happening in real time.
As I was doing it live, yeah.
And Joshua's argument here, it's basically making a debate club. He's going to debate another member of the council. And he basically believes that because they've met Cade, that it's going to be too high a cost to do this. Like, the Earthlings are far more likely to defend themselves than they first thought.
Yeah, because the woman who speaks first, and I'm sorry, I never caught her name. She sort of is the other side of the argument. She's like, let's go. And she's like, we know that we've been here for now 40 years, which seems like a long time to have just having this conversation again. But she's like, we know they can't defend against us. They just don't have it. He sort of makes the point. He's like, look, if 1 out of every 100 people's like Cade, then your numbers are wrong because you're not considering these outliers that are going to create a bigger problem than you originally thought. That's his point.
Well, and to her point, though, she does use multimedia presentations where she
oh my gosh, made me laugh.
Where she pulls up and she's like, if they're so strong, how did we take... Like, she says, we are the ones who got the Rodney King verdict to cause the LA riots.
LA riots, yeah.
Oh my God, you're not going to this, are you? They caused the Yugoslavian war.
Uh-huh.
And the Heaven's Gates cult suicides were also because of the Gua.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, okay. Well, there's a couple things. One, can you imagine those were the episodes that like Cade was like involved in? I mean, that's like, ooh, all right, guys. But also, it's funny that they were doing those things, but the things that Cade is doing is he's stopping an independent band from making like 40 kids angry.
I know, it was so bizarre. It was so bizarre to take credit for those in your series. I'm like, your series isn't serious enough for you to talk about those things.
They also mentioned that Cade has a website, and they're like, what if people start reading his website?
Well, that's Joshua's counter argument when she says, we started the Yugoslavian war. Joshua's just like, yes, but Cade's website is getting followers. I believe he calls it an internet website, actually.
An internet website, yeah. And we also learned right now that Eddie was the writer originally for Paranoid Times.
Yeah, that's the website they're referring to, because we get a clip show, and not even a clip show. We get like a tiny section where we see the first time he meets Eddie, and he's like, "I'm the publisher of the Paranoid Times." Also, Eddie has a acute paranoid disorder.
Yeah, I think that's why they call him Crazy Eddie. He's just like, yeah, I don't, he's paranoid. I don't know, but he has a sword. Do you remember he has a sword and he says it killed Lincoln? And he's like, Lincoln wasn't killed with a sword, and he's like, it didn't he? And I was like, no, he didn't. And it was just one of those weird throwaway things of like, I don't understand. Anyway,
it's really weird to see like a quick shot. I mean, it was nice to know how he met Crazy Eddie. We didn't get to see it, so it was nice to see it.
It's true. And we also get to see the human husks hanging in like a tube.
Yes, they show us a flashback to the episode where they discovered where the human husks are made in a laboratory. And this comes up because I believe Joshua says that Cade killed 13 guas this season.
Pretty good numbers.
No, not bad. I mean, there's only like, 22 episodes? That's nearly a gua an episode.
You know what I like, though, is that Cade throughout the show is using Nostradamus, those prophecies, to sort of like be his guide, right, through to find the aliens. But then they mentioned that the aliens, the Gua, have oracles, and they predicted the one, who I guess is Cade, who's going to stop them. I'm like, whoa, are they just acting on prophecies as well? The two of them are just having like conflicting prophecies?
No, I think that's the case. It's very funny because they're like, we got to get that Nostradamus book away from it. It's really hurting our plans. And they're like, what about our oracles who said Cade would come along and stop us? I was like, what is happening?
Yeah, I know. That's the funny thing about this for a clip show. There's a lot of information they're dropping in, and maybe it was stuff that you would have heard along the way if we'd watched all the episodes. But just watching it now, I'm just like, what is happening? This is a lot of stuff.
It's a lot of backstory. I did like they finally name what the 3 waves are, or at least the 2 waves we don't know about. So there's wave 1, the one they're in right now, which I don't know, secret infiltration. I have no idea. Wave 2 is according to Nostradamus, is invasion from above, and then wave 3 is Armageddon.
Yeah, that's not good.
Like, I don't understand. Aren't they? Didn't they say when the invasion happens, 19 million people will die? So, like, that's just wave 2? So, like, what is wave 3?
They kick them when they're down. It's like they're kicking that cop.
There's another clip where they do it to show, like, I think it was Joshua's arguments, like, about Cade's resourcefulness. And they're like, remember that time that he entered our pocket dimension we created to trap people's cars? I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, he entered the quantum pocket. It was one of the few times I was like, oh, I would have watched that episode.
It's so funny, but they're like, the plan was they like created it as an experiment to see how many cars they could trap in it.
Yeah. I mean, sure, why not?
I will say though, when you see the episode, it's Cade in the pocket trying to save some people who got trapped in there, and it looks like the Langoliers.
That's true. It does, huh?
It's just like an empty world with this sort of idea, and I'm just like, this would be a Langoliers episode, wouldn't it? Anyway, the debate continues for the invasion. The woman who's debating the side of pro-invasion, she says one of my favorite things too. She's just like, quote, "The sexual power of our gen-tech bodies is strong," and then says, "We've literally slept our way to the top."
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, she doesn't even just imply. She like outright says that the aliens are just like, yeah, sleeping their way to the top. And there's a bunch of weird things they drop. Is like, one, that it goes on to say, I think Joshua makes the argument how it's actually a problem because the aliens are getting addicted to sex. And I was like, oh, well, that's new.
Yeah, no, the aliens seem to like sex a lot, and they talk about this a little because part of the counter argument to the sex things, they're like, we can sleep right to the top. We'll get Cade eventually with our sexiness. And they show a clip of how, and you brought this up earlier, but like they go to a clip show and they don't give any explanation. But like, remember that time Cade was in New York City fighting the earworms? I think they called them like neuro earworms or something. And we see like a worm going to climbing out of a man's ear, but they give no further explanation to the worm thing.
Yeah, they looked a little bit like Star Trek 2.
Yeah, exactly like Star Trek 2. But remember when he was fighting those earworms? And also that episode, we turned his financial ally when we tried to turn her into one of us. We tried to make a clone of her so that we could trick him into having sex with her and ruin their relationship. It was just like, I'm like, it explains how he's paying for everything, but it's this weird scene where he's like walks into a room and there's 2 of the same woman. He's like, and they're both like, I'm the real Susan.
I can't believe again we missed that episode. That's your classic sci-fi thing where someone's doubled and the other person has to decide which one's the real one.
But the point of Joshua bringing up this flashback is just like, and he wouldn't have sex with her, so that's how we cannot use sex to stop him.
Yeah. He wasn't attracted to this one person.
But as you said, the Guar having trouble with temptation, which leads to another clip show. This time we see a weird show where Joshua goes to talk to the leader of a cult. He's like a Gua who's like started a cult where the experiment is to see if they can get humans to worship Gua as gods. But this like cult leader messed up his experiment and he just got them to be afraid of Gua like the devil. So then Joshua shoots him in the chest. I was like, what is this episode?
Yeah, and it was weird that they showed that too, because they just mentioned that they like the Heaven's Gate thing. So I was like, didn't they already do that plan?
Yeah, and also at no point does Cade show up in that clip. So I'm just like, what is this episode? Like, it doesn't seem like Cade has any role in this episode because Joshua was the only one like dealing with it.
Yeah, I think it's probably when they introduced Joshua as a major character, I think.
He does have there is an episode rather of the show called Joshua. So maybe Joshua just had his own episode at some point.
Yeah. But you know what I have to say? Of all these clips, this next episode they show with the ionized salt is the funniest thing I've seen in some time. Like, it's so dumb and it makes so little sense for them invading Earth that it just like, you got to give them a point.
Yeah, well, that's the second clip about their temptation, is that it turns out Gua DNA reacts negatively to iodized salt. As the man we see in the clip show says, the Gua in the clip show says, it's as good as heroin to Gua. So it's just a Gua snorting salt in a house full of like addicts. He's just like, you don't understand, I love salt.
Yeah, and it's like later, and it's just like later on, like Joshua comes and like grabs a guy, and the guy like drops, and he's just like dropping salt packets out of his hand. It made me laugh and laugh. It's so dumb, it's unbelievable.
I know. I'm hoping this comes back where just like they constantly have to like not eat salt. It's such a wild choice.
Well, that should be what Cade just keeps always taking someone to dinner, and he's like, "Do you want salt with that?" And they're like, "No." He's like, "Alien," and shoots them. That's it. Every episode.
I do like Joshua, again, we don't see Cade in this flashback at all. All we see is Joshua's side of it. And Joshua has an assault rifle that he hunts this man through this drug den full of people who are also high on real drugs and like blows him away with an assault rifle in the middle of it.
That's right. Yeah. But I should say the guy also throws salt in his eyes. And he's like, salt. It just was so dumb. If we ever go back, that's the episode we have to watch.
I think that might be a different clip show because I think the next clip show we see is the clip show of the time Cade found the Gua that killed his wife and got his revenge. And it's some like
that's right.
cop Gua or something. And I think that's how he gets the upper hand is Cade throws salt in his eyes and then
that's
like
right. You're right. Yeah, you're right. You're right. And it's a good way to always win a fight. Salt in the eyes.
It was nice to see, though. We didn't watch the episode. We had just heard about it in the hospital episode that Cade had got revenge. And now I know how he got it, so I've got everything I need.
You are right. Really, you could have just watched the first episode, last episode of the season. You go, yeah, I pretty much get it all.
I did like, though, in that flashback to when he killed the guy who killed his wife, they clearly brought the actress who played the wife back for that episode to, like,
that's right,
show what happened to her when we weren't with her and how she died. And it's the worst. They just shot this poor actress. They just put her in a white room, pointed the camera at her, and they're like, just talk like they're going to kill you. And she's just like, okay. And her whole thing is she's just like, if you kill me, Cade will never stop. He'll keep coming for you. And I was just like, that's not how she's like in the pilot at all.
Yeah, it was bad. It was really bad. You basically get all this so that they can each get the female person speaking and the male person speaking. Again, I know his name's Joshua. I didn't catch her name. And they basically make like a big final argument. I was like, oh, is this just set up like court or something? So they can like both make their final argument and then they can all vote. And them voting was one of my favorite things because they basically both make their like closing arguments and then everyone votes by standing up and saying they like put their hand out and the earth appears. I think it's earth. It's like a glowing digital ball. And then they put their hand out either in a fist or a palm. And if they put their fist out, they're like attack. And the earth goes red. And if they say don't attack, they put their like palm up like stop. And it goes blue. And I actually said, I was like, this is a pretty good visual and interesting thing to look at. Unfortunately, it's a stupid clip show.
Yes, and because it's a season finale, the aliens all vote attack or don't attack, I guess. Those are your options.
Yeah.
And Joshua and his debate partner are like, it's all down to one vote. What will it be? And it's just like, end episode.
End episode, yeah. They have like the final guy who I guess is like the mediator or the leader. It's not clear who he is, but yeah, he's the deciding vote, and they just end on him. We go to black, and I'm like, oh, the stakes have never been higher.
I mean, it was very funny. It was like they know they needed a cliffhanger to bring you back next year, especially after they gave you a clip show at the end of the season.
Yeah. I just, it's such an odd choice to finish the season with, but clearly there was a reason, and maybe it was just I don't know, to remind you of what you'd watched. It seems odd. There's so many better ways they could have done it.
I do think it's probably the case where it's just like they were getting to the end of the season. It's not a very serialized show, but there are serialized elements. And, maybe they're worried that people haven't seen every episode, and they're hoping this is at least a way for people who've missed a few episodes to get caught up and, do that.
Right.
But it is a weird choice. Imagine you were enjoying this show. You're really excited about it, and you turned in for the last episode, and this is what you got. I think I'd be furious if I was, a person enjoying this show.
Yeah, and again, if you're enjoying this show, it's probably because, right or wrong, you find the actor or the character Cade engaging or charismatic, and you like watching his adventures, and that's not really what this is. But what's funny? I was thinking about this. We're in an age where I don't think clip shows exist anymore. I mean, maybe there's a sitcom or two on TV that still do this sort of thing, but I remember being a kid and watching a TV show, and when a clip show came on, I was furious. I was like, I've waited all week for my show, and it's a clip show? It's like, it just was driving me crazy, and that was the feeling I had watching this again. I was like, I'm having to sit down, and this is what you're giving me? I'm giving more effort than you guys.
It really was from a time and place in television.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, I also find funny, because we've seen this before, but first season clip show, that's a real ballsy move.
Yeah, it's a real sign that things are not going well, I think.
So you haven't had enough episodes for me to be looking forward to seeing nostalgically old clips.
What would have been great is if it was clips from stuff that they actually shot new stuff. It's like other adventures we'd never seen. Then I would have been cool with it. Do you know what I mean? If it was like, this time Cade did this, but episodes that they just created their own in-episode kind of adventures to kind of widen the world, and that would have been cool, but they just didn't do that.
Imagine, Jordan, they're shooting this clip show, they get to the last day, it's the final episode of the first season, they haven't got picked up by America yet for 66 more episodes. They're just like, great job, everybody, let's go to the wrap party, let's celebrate doing this one season we did, we may never get another one. No one remembered to tell Cade, because he wasn't there that day. He missed the whole party.
Yeah, that's funny. Poor Cade. What's the actor's name again? Hold on, it's Sebastian Spence.
Great name. Almost as good as Foster Cade, or Cade Foster. Could go either way.
And Cade Foster's good, but you what was the name of the record executive again?
Kenny Gaines.
Kenny Gaines, yeah.
Give me a whole show about Kenny Gaines, record producer.
Yeah. You want some gains? Call Kenny Gaines. I don't know, that's the best I got.
Well, that's something.
Let him take the reins. It's Kenny Gaines.
Ah, there you go. That's better.
Yeah.
All right, John, you want to rate these?
Yeah, sure.
All right. How did you feel about Melody, which, to be fair, should have been called Bitter Melody, like the Quatrain?
You're right. Better title. You know what's funny? Is it a great episode? No. I kind of wish it took a couple turns that I didn't see coming. It sort of just is like a paint by numbers of what you think this episode is going to be. But I have to say, this show has a little bit of charm to it. It's fast. It's always entertaining. So I'm still going to give it a 6 out of 10.
6 out of 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt the drag. This was a real wheel spinner of an episode at times. A lot of going back and forth, trying to convince the band to listen to Kenny Gaines, and then being not interested, and then him being oh, okay, well, I'll come back later and try again. But it was a real capture of the music of the time. I was still very surprised by the music and how it sounded, and it was really more effort than I would have expected from a show like this. So I'm gonna go right up to a 5. I think not a lot better than that, but a 5.
I think you're probably. I think it's probably somewhere between us, between a 5 and a 6. It's not a great episode, but I think the show, at least the show, even in these kind of not great episodes, it still moves at a pretty good clip.
All right, what about The Decision?
I hated it. 1 out of 10.
1 out of 10.
Hated it.
It is very funny. It's so funny to do this clip show. It was useful for our purposes, having not watched the first season, but
I would agree with that.
Wildly insane. I'll say this. I liked some of the canon backstory stuff they gave me. I was happy to have it. I didn't mind that Joshua guy. I actually kind of was interested in that character. I think he's doing a lot with a little, that actor. He's really giving a weird, he never feels like he's going to betray his race of aliens, but you can see a real conflict that none of these other Gua have, which I thought was very interesting.
That's why I think he's going to be a character later on in the show, because I get that sort of like he's wrestling with the two worlds, and I think it's an interesting character that the show could use, and also the show could use some more regular characters. But in service of what? A clip show? It's terrible.
Yeah. And I mean, it makes me curious about what his other 7 episodes were like. Like, if I'm like, what's this character? He's clearly growing more than anyone else on the show. Definitely growing more than Cade or Crazy Eddie.
Yeah, fair enough.
But to that point, I'm only going to give it a 2.
Yeah. Not great.
Bizarre. It's a bizarre choice.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's so funny because I was so in on the first scene. I was like, oh, this is awesome. We're really getting all this backstory and all the alien stuff. And as soon as they started playing that 10-minute clip from the pilot, I was like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. Is this what I'm doing with my night?
I will give it this, though. It made the episode go by fast because I did not have to pay much attention.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. Well, that wraps it up for this episode. So if you would like more First Wave, because we haven't covered much of it, obviously. We're now done the first season. We've covered 4 of 22 episodes, 18 whole episodes unwatched. You can get us to watch them. You can force us to watch more First Wave.
Pick
by
that Salt
donating
episode.
To bonus episodes for charity.
Yeah. Or it could be any show. It doesn't have to be a First Wave.
Oh, that's true. You could do anything we haven't finished watching.
Yeah. But First Wave,
No examples?
I always say, because I know we didn't finish Threshold, so that's always my go-to. You can watch Threshold, or you can watch Cork, or Mrs. Noah. Did we watch all of Mrs. Noah?
I think we watched all. You know what? There might be more Mrs. Noah. No, I think we watched it all. I can't decide.
Yeah. Anyways, there's other series, but yeah, there's episodes there we didn't watch. Make us watch them.
Yeah. We just watched Tech War. We just watched an episode of Tech War.
That's right. Yeah.
Which, by the way, the wonderful listener Ryan, who did that charity bonus episode, he made a good point that he made a great donation to the Annex Toronto Cat Charity. And he was just like, you should tell your American listeners the Canadian dollar sucks, so $50 is like nothing to us.
That's a very good point.
He made a great point. I'm like, oh, you're right. We're giving this away for free, basically. If you're American, it's play money.
Yeah, that's right. It was 75 cents on the dollar.
At any rate, you can make a donation by going to our website. We've got a list of charities as picked out by our listener or by our past guests. Pick an episode from a series we watched but didn't finish. You can go to the website, find all the information there. Or if you have any questions, just email me, continuumdrag@gmail.com. I'll explain the whole thing to you in a more cohesive way. And then, of course, on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, we're going to have clips of these shows, some stuff from music to clip shows. I mean, we get to show some clips from all kinds of other episodes we didn't watch. So
that's true. Once you break it down to Instagram, this is a pretty good episode.
You'll get to see all the clips of a clip show.
Salt.
And that, of course, the handle on those places is @ContinuumDrag. But that wraps it up for this episode. So, listener, thank you for joining us. And Jordan, I'll see you next week.
See you then. We get to watch a bit of Quantum Pocket.
Continuum Drag is recorded in Toronto, Ontario, and Seoul, South Korea. Theme music by James Rick Seidler. Produced by Jordan Delick and Luke Black. Special thanks to Aaron Yunes.